Hi guys. So, I cut my hair. You can tell that I cut it myself because it's kind of uneven, but I don't really care. Honestly, cutting my hair has been one of the most liberating things I have done in a really long time. My hair was so long and I'm pretty glad it's over now. Back to the actual content of the video. So it's that time of the month again, time for my monthly wrap-up video. So today I'm going to share with you guys all of the books that I read this past February, as well as the one and only book I read in January. So as you guys know, I was away on vacation for all of January basically, so I didn't really have a lot of time to read. So the one and only book I actually read in January was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This book, I loved it so much. So if you guys are not familiar with this book, it is about a girl named Kath who begins her first year in college, and she has a twin, and a lot of the stuff that in this book that she's dealing with is the fact that her twin is kind of separating and she's starting to become an independent person, and that's something that Kath is not used to. I love this book. I related to Kath so much. Her struggles feel very relatable to me. Her insecurities, her trust issues, like all the things that she's dealing with, I just related to her so much, and I loved how she developed in this book. I loved her relationship with Levi. It's just, I love this book. The one thing that I do have a complaint about is a thing that I know a lot of people have about Rainbow Rowell's writing in general, is the ending of the book. It just felt so open-ended and I wanted more. I remember I was reading it and then all of a sudden it ended because I was so engrossed in it. I wasn't even like looking at the percentage of how far I was into the book or anything, and then all of a sudden it ended and I was just like, I need more! Rainbow Rowell is actually coming out with a book for the fanfiction in the novel, which I will say personally I was more interested in the actual story than the fanfiction, because she does include a lot of fanfiction snippets in here, the stuff that Kath has been writing and stuff, but I was a lot more interested in the actual story of the characters, not so much in the fanfiction. So I'm not entirely sure if I am going to pick up the fanfiction book, the Simon Snow fanfic that Rainbow Rowell is going to publish, but this book, I loved it and I really highly recommend it. You guys know that I've been struggling a little bit with a kind of slump that I've been going through, but for the fact that I was in a reading slump, I ended up reading 6 books, which I think is pretty good for someone who's in a slump. So in an effort to get out of my reading slump, Ilse from Ilse's Books actually recommended that I read Rebel Belle because she thought that it would be a really good book to help me get out of my reading slump, because she said it was really funny, really fast-paced, and enjoyable. So I ended up picking it up and reading it, and I actually filmed a review for this book. If you guys are interested in checking it out, I will link it right here. I don't want to get too much into it because I already did a whole review on it, so if you're interested, check it out. But I really enjoyed this book, and I am definitely going to read Miss Mayhem, which comes out later this year. I think it comes out in April. And then after that, in an effort to keep crawling my way out of my slump, I decided to pick up a manga. I haven't read a manga in a few months, but I ended up buying this from the book outlet a little while ago, so I decided to read it. It is Your and My Secret by Ai Morinaga. I actually finished the whole series. It is a series with 8 volumes, and this, if you are not familiar with manga or anime, you might not be familiar with this concept, but this is a gender bender. It is kind of a gender bender with a twist. Now, if you don't know what a gender bender is, it is usually where the main character is either a girl pretending to be a guy or a guy pretending to be a girl, and I personally really like these because they are so wacky and funny. They're crazy, but they're so enjoyable, and this one was no exception. Now, I will say one thing. I love this first volume. I thought that it was hilarious, it was wacky, it was kooky, it was everything that I like in the gender bender, or just in an anime in general. I really enjoy the weird, kooky ones. Like, another one of my favorites is Ouran High School Host Club. It's Hanakimi I actually really like. I've watched all the adaptations. I watched the Taiwanese, I watched the Japanese, and I watched the Korean adaptations, and I read the manga, so I am a fan of it. This one, like I said, I loved the first volume. I wasn't particularly a huge fan of the rest of the manga, but this first volume I really enjoyed. After that, I finally finished Onyx by Jennifer L. Armentrout, the second book in the Lux series. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was funny. It was... you guys know how I feel about Damon. He is such a lovable asshole and I love him so much. Because it is a sequel, I don't want to give too much away on the story because I don't want to spoil anyone. I really like where the story is heading, and I really like Kat's relationship with Damon, how it's developing, stuff that's happening. It's hitting the fan, guys, and I cannot wait to find out what happens next. So after finishing Rebel Belle, I really wanted to read something else by Rachel Hawkins, and I realized that I had Hex Hall, the first book in the Hex Hall trilogy, and I actually really enjoyed this, and I think I like this a little bit more than Rebel Belle. This is about a girl named Sophie who is forced to go to this school for magical beings. She is a witch, and I don't want to give too much away, but she is not your typical witch. And she's forced to go to this school where there have been really suspicious incidents that have happened right before her arrival at this school, and she's trying to figure them out. And her roommate is kind of framed for a murder, and she's trying to figure out whether her roommate did actually kill this girl or what is going on with this school. And there is a romancy element to it as well. It has so many twists that I was not expecting, and I found myself really enjoying it. It is a pretty fast read. I flew through this book pretty quickly. If you are a fan of Rachel Hawkins and you have for some reason not read this series yet, I really recommend it. I think that the first book is really great, and I'm really excited to see how the story is going to develop. So after Hex Hall, I decided that it was time to finally start finishing some of the books that I have started. And in the beginning of my reading slump, I started Shatter Me by Tara Mafi, but I was having a little bit of a hard time getting into it in the beginning. I finally picked it up, I finished it, and I really like this. Guys, first of all, the writing is beautiful. It does take a bit of getting used to, I think, if you're not used to this. It feels very poetic, but at the same time, there are certain aspects of it. There's strike-throughs, there's repetition, and it took me a little bit to get into it because of that, because I feel like in the beginning it did kind of pull me out of the story. I was finally like being engrossed, and then I saw these things and they pulled me out. But then as you kind of continue reading it, you do kind of get used to it and the style of writing, and the story is really great. It has me so conflicted for certain characters. I don't want to say a lot, but the next book that I read is related to Shatter Me. It is Destroy Me by Tara Mafi. This is the novella that accompanies Shatter Me. It takes place like right after Shatter Me ends, and it follows our main villain, Warner, as he is dealing with the after effects of what happened at the end of the last book. I'm trying not to spoil you, but let me just say that Warner, I think, is by far my favorite character in the series, which is something that I never, like reading the first book, this is something that I never ever thought I was going to say, but he is just so complex and warped and so interesting. And I'm not saying particularly that he is my favorite character in terms of likability. I don't think that I would want Warner as my best friend necessarily at this point, but I do think that he is just one of the most complex and interesting characters in the series so far. I really enjoyed reading this from his perspective. I really want to read Unravel Me now because I want to know more. I'm more interested in Warner at this point than I am about Juliet or Adam or any of the other characters in the series, to be honest. That is it for my February wrap-up. Those are all the books that I read in February, as well as the single book that I read in January. I think I did pretty good, considering I was kind of dealing with the reading slump and I was trying to get out of it. I think I did a pretty good job. Let me know what you guys' thoughts were on any of the books that I read this month. I am super interested in knowing what you guys have to say about all this. So that is it for this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye guys! Tag for my favorite series ever. You guys already know by the title, obviously. It is the ultimate Harry Potter book tag.